to another lesson of the Logos and Letters. My name is Liam, and we are going to press on with this interesting little part of chapter 8. Okay, it's been an absolute roller coaster of a ride so far, and we have covered an enormous array of different things, more so than in any other chapters previously, in my own opinion, but perhaps my memory is a bit skewed. So let's start with this little part here. Now, ideally, in the future, I would just make each lesson a paragraph or a piece of a paragraph each, like I've spoken of before. However, I am aware, from pedagogical perspective, that since this textbook in particular, the categories, is still quite foundational, quite new, I'm going to treat the audience with all the respect that they are due, and not expect that such dense material can be treated in such a cookie cutter fashion. Not yet, anyway. When I get into the later texts, I will respect my audience in the same way and understand that they are probably capable of, say, tackling something as large as this in a single lesson. So my pedagogy will evolve as the texts evolve, and so on and so forth, okay? Because I expect that many of you who are listening now will attain mastery in most of this stuff, not only in the logic, but also in Greek probably as well. Even if you just watch these lessons, I'm pretty sure you get pretty darn good at Greek. So the workload will increase to a certain point. Something about this would be as big as I'd ever go in a lesson, even at the end of the text. But we'll build our way there. Okay, so for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this point here, this sentence, and then I'm going to go to alon. Okay, so isos menun kai alos antis phanae tropos poetetos allo hoige malista legomenoi skedon hutoisin. Right, so in short, in this sentence, he's saying, perhaps, there are others that may appear, other ways of speaking of qualities, tropos, poiotetos, but alloi, but these said things, these things that we're speaking about, are about what they are, okay? Right, so he's saying, perhaps if someone were to exhaustively go through this, rigorously go through this, dedicate a whole year or 2 years of their life to this, perhaps, you will come up with things that shall appear to you differently to what's said up here. But so far as what has been said, it seems sufficient. Let's move on. Poiotetes menun isin hai reimenai. So qualities, therefore, are the things that have been aforementioned or said before. Hai reimenai. Poiadeta katatautas paronymos legomena. Right, so here it is, paronyms. There was 2 lessons just before on that, and again, we're circling back to it. You got to address it. It's very important. Paronyms are said of these sorts of things, according to these sorts of things, these qualities, that what sortish it is, all right? And that's an important consideration to make. Paronyms, of course, can be, actually, he's got examples down here. Let me keep that thought to myself for a second. Hoposuna los ap auton, right? So paronyms seem to be these things, or, in a more general way of speaking, hoposun alos apauton. So in any other way, hoposun alos sort of overlap in meaning. Hoposun in in any other way, alos otherwise. In any other way, otherwise, apauton from them, derived from them. So paronyms are derived from them, or are said according to them. Epimenun ton plaiston kai skedon epipanton paronymos legatai. So in regard to most cases, and sufficiently, or just about all cases, paronyms are said. All right, so that's one point here, another point there, and that's the truth. Okay, so that is the truth. We say it of all sorts of things. Okay, let me get a good example up here. Paronyms. Actually, he's got them right here. Why am I bothering about that? Hoyo napotes lukos. Right, so see his language as well, really coming into the foray. So whiteness, from whiteness, white. Kaya hapotes grammaticos. From the grammatical, the grammarian. Kaya hapotes dekaios, right? From like the abstraction, the virtue of justice, okay? Des dekaios this is like the virtue. Dekaios, just, right? Hosotos dekaya pitonalon. And now, dekaios could also mean like, I guess it could mean judge as well, if you wanted to use it substantively like that. But I'm just going to say justice there. Okay, so I didn't mean to do that. So on and so forth. Let me tidy this whole paragraph up. All right. So we can see how the word usually changes, the form of the word, and that's the definition in chapter 1. Sentence 3, where patosai, en patosai, right? I think entoi patosai, doesn't it say that? In the form, in the case, in the form, and his language has case declensions in nouns. Obviously, that's what we're dealing with. That's why the words change so much in their form. English, not so much anymore. One. In yesteryear, they definitely did, in yonder age. If we go back to Old English, for example, such a beautiful language, there was pretty much 8 cases for the nouns. And that was pretty standard for Proto-Indo-European, 8 cases, even more sometimes. But we've shed those for the sake of simplicity and ease and comfort and efficiency, of course. That's what languages do. They aim for efficiency. But let's not get distracted by that linguistics lesson. This is a logic lesson. Ep enion de dia to me kaistaitais poioteisin onomatauk en dekatai. Alright, paranumos apauton legestai. Hoion dromikos puktikos ho katadunamin physikain legomenos ap udemias poiotetos. Right, so I've gone a bit further than what I needed to, but what he's done is provide examples of when it's not so much the case. Okay, so we can have a runner, a dromikos, hoion dromikos, or a fighter, specifically here a pugilist, a boxer. These are spoken according to a natural ability, right? Dunamin physikain, right? So yeah, we'll leave that there. So it's not in all cases that we name people after like a specific quality per se. It can be natural ability. The swimmer, the runner, the dancer, the fighter, all sorts of things like that. Because really, if you think about it, those are verbs that we're speaking of. Those are actions, and actions are not qualities, that's for sure. To fight, to dance, to swim, to run, to box. These are verbs, and verbs are actions, different supreme genus altogether. And qualities, being separate from those, cannot be said to be the basis of that title. Cannot be a paronym, therefore. And then that leaves us with the point that he's addressed here. All right. So it's not always the case, and so we don't have to be too strict about that. But these ones are the more obvious ones. Okay. For example, if you were to say gardener was a paronym of is a paronym, it's fair enough. We completely understand what you're saying. All right, it is paronymous because the act of gardening is a verb, clearly, to garden, But there's a quality about that, isn't it? We're speaking about there's some quality of knowledge that's in the person of gardening. That's why we're calling them a gardener. It's not the fact that you just garden once and that makes you a gardener. We get it. We fully understand it. So and it does make sense. It is correct in that sense. But if you just want to understand how it all works and what are the rules and what are the exceptions, he's just laying it out here. Okay, so yeah, it's a pretty useful lesson when it comes to language. Another great example of how logic and language go hand in hand so often. And yeah, and one final note, when we're speaking of whiteness and white and things of that sort, that means that it's possible to have more than one shade of a color. Okay, so you can have blueness in a body of water, and you can have all sorts of shades of blue, because that is like the affection. All right, and the affection is going to be affected by its particular accidents based on everything from temperature, time of day, algae blooms, the muddy bottom, whether it's stone at the bottom of the river, like gravel, rocks, or is it just complete mud? Is it being thrashed around by fish, or have horses gone through it recently? So the blue change, but the blueness of the water is an abstraction. Okay, that will either be there or not, and the degree to which it is blue is sort of the affection, the can emit of degrees, but the qualities themselves, the actual abstractions, do not emit of degrees. Okay, whiteness is just whiteness, right? The snow might be a darker color than bright white, but the whiteness is always just whiteness. And yeah, so I'll leave that there. I think that's a good place to stop. And as always, si semper fortis in opere. My name is Liam, and I'll see you next time.